Hi and welcome. If you can hear me, can you give me a yes in the comments? Hello, welcome. I see we have a viewer from Facebook. You can say hi in the comments. Let me know that you can hear me and see me. Oh, hi. Hi, Marcia. Thank you. Marcia, where are you hosting from? Excuse me. I just also want to, since it's a couple minutes after the hour, let me get started. And I want to start by saying hi and thank you for joining me. We've got about 20, 30 minutes today. And today we are going to be talking about the extenuating circumstances policy changes that Airbnb made in the middle of January. And then I will be doing a live Q&A where I'll answer all of your questions. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Matt. I'm an Airbnb superhost, and I'm the creator of AirbnbUncovered.com. I've hosted nearly 3,500 guests, and in that time, I've earned over seven figures in revenue on Airbnb. I've been hosting for almost 6 years now. I think in the summer, in the spring, it comes to 6 years. And I've also never, ever missed out on earning the superhost status. So that is, I think, about, well, close to 72 consecutive months of superhost status. Um, Airbnb Uncovered is focused on helping hosts get through the pandemic so that they'll be best positioned to take advantage of the return to travel, as well as it's where I share everything that I've ever learned from hosting all of those guests. It's about tips, tricks, best practice, and industry news like we're going to talk about today. Again, today's topic is the changes to the extenuating circumstances policy, and we'll look at how it's going to affect you. And then afterwards, we'll do about 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes of questions and answers. Oh, Jeanette, Marcia is from Jamaica. Welcome. I bet it's much warmer in Jamaica than it is here. Thank you for that comment. So let me just start off by explaining what the extenuating circumstances policy is. So on every listing, as hosts, we get to set our cancellation policy. So you have three options, either flexible, moderate, or strict. And that determines under normal circumstances when a guest is eligible for a refund. And regardless of which one of those cancellation policies you choose, um, the reasons for which a guest could get a cancellation don't matter at all. It's the only thing that triggers a refund is uh, the date when the guest requests the refund. And so, depending on the level of flexibility that you offer within those three cancellation policies, that will determine the date that the guest asks for the or for the refund will determine what kind of refund they get. So, in the situation of a flexible policy, the guest can request a refund right up until 24 hours before check in, and they will get a refund. If it's 24 hours before check in and you are operating under a strict policy, then the guest will not get a refund because that refund period has expired. So, what is an extenuating circumstances policy? Well, sometimes there are things outside of the guest's control that qualifies for Airbnb to override your cancellation policy and give a refund anyway. In the past, this has been a fairly large pool of things that could be um, eligible for a refund, and it is, in fact, the extenuating circumstances policy that allowed almost all of our guests to receive a refund over the last 9 to 10 months when the pandemic struck. So, um, they on January 20th, Airbnb made a big change to the extenuating circumstances policy. And finally, the change was actually towards hosts. So, this new extenuating circumstances policy actually benefits us much more than the old policy. So, let me tell you what changed. So, in the past, um, guests could appeal to Airbnb if they were injured or fell sick and they had a note from their doctor. That would make them eligible for a full refund. If they had their travel plans that were impacted by a flight cancellation or a flight delay, also eligible for a refund. In a similar light, if an adverse weather storm or weather event happened, then again, eligible for a refund. I also believe that if a government issued a travel advisory, so a government advises its residents not to travel to a particular destination, then again, a refund. Um, and I think in some situations as well, according to Airbnb, if a guest couldn't get their travel visas in time, or they were in fact expired, then they could also get a refund. So, all of these things hosts have little control over. And in some instances, they can kind of be expected. So, a travel visa, you need to get your travel documentation together if you're traveling internationally. Is it really fair for the host to lose out on a night's revenue if there's a snowstorm? If they live in a winter climate like in Canada and it's the winter time and we get snowstorms all the time and that does impact travel. It's just how it works here. So is that really unexpected or outside of someone's control? You should know there are going to be snowstorms in the winter in Canada. Likewise, you should know there are going to be hurricanes in Florida in the fall during hurricane season. So some of this stuff I think was overly generous. Airbnb seems to have agreed. And so now all of those things that I just mentioned, they're no longer eligible for Airbnb to override your cancellation policy and to issue the guest a full refund. You, though, can still decide on a case by case basis if you do want to give your guest a refund. Since sickness and illness doesn't qualify anymore, perhaps if your guest has fallen terribly ill, then and you feel bad for them and you want to refund their money, then you're absolutely able to do that. Along that vein, there are a few. So, just to recap, what is still going to be eligible for full refund in an extenuating circumstance. So, this is again situations where your cancellation policy, the one you picked for your listing, doesn't allow for the guest to get a refund. So the guest can use the extenuating circumstances policy, go to Airbnb and get a refund. And so the list of things that qualify for that refund is much shorter now. So let me walk you through what that list is. So, things that are still covered that would end up with the guest getting a refund are things like truly unforeseen large scale natural disasters. So, think of a tsunami or a volcanic eruption, um, a major storm that wipes out many or most of the essential utilities. So in those cases, that's eligible for a refund, and that's probably fair because you wouldn't be able to host them anyway if you had lost power or you were having to be evacuated because of a volcanic explosion. Uh, Similarly, if there is another declaration of another global pandemic, hopefully not of COVID-19 again, that would also qualify because it's truly unexpected. No one would have any idea. Other things that qualify for a full refund are terrible things like war and insurrections and terrorism or civil unrest. Those are all eligible for a refund as well. Refunds can also be granted. Sorry, refunds will only be granted now if a country blocks travel to a particular destination. So before it used to be a travel advisory, now the government has to completely block the travel from that country to where you are in order to receive a cancellation. So these things seem to make more sense. They seem to be um, items or events that happen so much less frequent than, say, a guest falling ill or being called to jury duty, um, or that there's a snowstorm. And so finally, we see Airbnb is kind of backing hosts more, because really, if you're booked and Airbnb just comes in and offers a blanket refund, they're essentially taking money out of your pocket, especially if it's a last minute deal, because it's going to be hard to find a replacement guest, especially these days when our bookings tend to be longer and it takes longer to get a new booking because there are fewer guests visiting the site and looking for accommodation. So this is absolutely great news. The other thing that was good news, although disappointing at the same time, is that Airbnb says it is looking at offering travel insurance. And travel insurance would take the place of a lot of the risk here, both on the guest side and on the host side. So if we could have travel insurance, that would be great. It would cover off more of the risks. As hosts, we would get paid out by the insurance whenever it was triggered, and Airbnb wouldn't be stuck in the middle. So let me just sum it up for you. That's all I have for you today is really about talking about the new or the changes to the extenuating circumstances policy. And remember, extenuating circumstances policy is Airbnb's policy of offering full refunds when a guest's situation doesn't meet the criteria of your cancellation and refund policy. There are three cancellation refund policies that you can pick for your listing: flexible, moderate, and strict. And again, if a guest situation doesn't meet your qualifications for a refund and they have a special circumstance, they can use the extenuating circumstances policy. Airbnb quickly got rid of a lot of the more common and expected items that would qualify a guest for a refund, and they have just kept the bare minimum stuff. So, if there's a large scale natural disaster, if many of the public utilities are not operating, or if there's a war or a terrorist act, then all of those things at, qualify for a full refund if the guest is unable to travel due to one of those things. So, I would love to see your questions. If you have any questions for me, and while you're typing your questions, I just want to tell you that if you want more information like this, more industry news, more best practices about being a host, more tips and tricks, and all of the things that I've learned after hosting nearly 3,500 guests and hosting during the pandemic, you can head over to my website and sign up for my newsletter. And so my website is airbnbuncovered.com. And right on the front page, on the homepage, you'll see a place to enter your name and email address so that you can receive timely updates from me. All of those timely updates, they will all be focused on ways so that you can become a better host, earn more money, and achieve superhost status faster. So let me just have a look in the comments and see if we have any questions. I am not seeing any. I'll just give it a minute or two. We'll stay until 15 minutes after the hour. And if we don't have any questions, then I think we'll call this session. Oh, I see we have Marcia, have you rejoined? Do you have questions? We have somebody from YouTube who is joined. Give me a hello in the comment box. This is an Airbnb host question and answer session. So if you're an Airbnb host, give me a hello in the comments. See who we have with us today. All right. Well, I am not seeing any questions or comments in the box. If I missed you and you do have a question, or perhaps you're not comfortable sharing the question on the live, you can send me an email at matt@airbnbuncovered.com and I'll put it up on the screen for you. Excuse me, you can head on over to my website to learn more about becoming a superhost faster, earning more money from your Airbnb, especially during the pandemic. And if you have questions, send me an email, matt@airbnbuncovered.com. Thanks again for joining today, and I will see you next week around the same time when we do another live question and answer period.